Oh, this is exciting. We're live.
Yeah, and we're live from Stockholm and Boston.
All right. Well, why don't you guys all say hello?
Hello, stream.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Boston.
Hello.
All right. Good. Well, why don't you guys all say hello?
Hello, stream.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Boston.
So, Eric, I'm guessing you've got YouTube playing in the background or something.
Hello. Yep.
Hello, stream.
Because we can hear the playback. You'll have to make it so we can't hear it. Did you get that?
I think. Yep. I'm muted here now.
Fantastic. That's much better. It was a little freaky. Eric, let's see. Why don't you make my screen a little bit bigger? Oops. Oh, Seema's gotten bigger. That's better than my screen, I guess. Okay. And how do I say Midsummer Kransen? That was bad.
It wasn't too bad. Midsummer Kransen.
No, it was very bad. but thank you, Christopher. All right. Will you let us know what's the count on YouTube?
The count on YouTube is currently 15.
Oh, fantastic. People are here. Well, if you're just joining us, my name's Gib, and we've got Seema, Sylvia, Christopher, and Eric. We're just warming up, making sure all the tech works. And the main thing is we're using a combination of Google Slides and Slido. Let's see. Sylvia, do you want to tell people how to use Slido to tell us where they're coming from?
Sure. So it was super easy. I just opened my camera and looked at the QR code, and then it opens automatically.
Fantastic. Hey, Eric, make it even bigger so people can get it easily with their QR code. Oh my God, that's awesome. I love being able to produce this on the fly. Now, I call this Slido shaming. So if you're just joining us, we're just warming up. We'll start a few minutes after the hour, but we're just working to make sure that this combination of Google Slides and Slido works. I'm sure there's a bunch of folks from Stockholm. If you're from Stockholm, tell us what neighborhood you're in, because we want to know where the cool kids live. And the Slido shaming, what's the count on YouTube right now, Eric?
We're at 18 now.
See, so I'm looking. I can see 6 people have used Slido, but we got 18 people streaming. That's the Slido shaming that I do. So a bunch of warm-up questions. Sylvia, which of these has been the most stressful for you over the last month?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's an easy answer for me. That was COVID-19.
Got it. Hey, Eric, why don't you pull up me and Sylvia? Fantastic. Now I see 5 of us. This is fun. and the results. I want to see the results too. Eric, you're doing amazing. Okay, and has it always been COVID for you, Sylvia? That's been the most stressful?
Over the past year, I mean, it has just been a very dominating experience for all of us.
Yeah.
Like, of course, a lot of plans have changed. I have an international family, so that has been the hardest, like not being able to travel, not being able to see each other.
Got it.
Yeah, I think we are getting used to it. It's not the end of the world. It's just a bit tougher times than usual.
And then Christopher, what's been the most stressful for you?
I got to go with climate change, especially during the last month. It feels like all of Western US and most of the Amazons are on fire.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your empathy. Yeah. I live in California. I just happened to be in Boston for 7 weeks. I hopped on a plane for the first time about 3 weeks ago to help out my 24-year-old daughter in Boston. My wife's here also. Okay, Eric, what was most stressful for you?
I'll go with the political issues. It seems like also the world is it's very fragile now. There's I think it seems like everything is breaking apart at the seams. But
so Eric,
yeah.
By definition, then I know that you haven't answered the question.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say that. I've been too busy DAing here. I'm a hobby producer here.
Oh, we think you could do it all, Eric.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Seema, what about you? What's been most stressful for you?
For me, I would also go for political issues because I feel like the world is in a very fragile and unstable situation, and every single movement, if it's in the wrong direction, can cause a really bad catastrophe. So I'm really hoping for some peace for the world, at least. Yeah.
Cool. Hey, if you're just joining us, we're going to start a couple of minutes after the hour. So you're in the right place at the right time. And we're just making sure that Slido works. So we're going to be doing a fair amount of interactive polling, word clouds. Seema, you want to explain to folks how to make Slido work?
Yeah, absolutely. It's super easy. So you're just going to have to take your phone, open your camera, and scan the code. There is a pop-up saying that you should open this on your Safari or any other browser you're using. And there you just open it, and there you can just answer all those questions.
Cool. And I saw somebody from San Jose. Usually I'm in Burlingame, California. By the way, you can also use chat in YouTube. We're watching the chat. For the folks in San Jose, I want to know if we got blue skies today or not. How's the smoke? That's the question. Great to see Lisbon. Awesome. We've asked this question, but we're going back and forth. Really, I've been asking this question since I did lockdown on March 12th. And it changes from city to city, from time to time. Did our San Jose pal get back to us on California weather report via chat?
Not yet.
So sad. I guess there are easier ways to find out the weather. That's what the interwebs are for. Okay. Let's see. Sylvia, have you watched Stranger Things?
Actually, I did not.
How about you, Seema?
No, I haven't watched it yet.
Got it.
Yeah.
Eric, you got your hands full? Can you answer this question too?
Yeah, I'm currently watching it. No, I'm.
Okay, cool. Yeah. You're not busy enough. That's great. Christopher, have you watched it?
Yeah, I'm hooked.
Good. So here's this is me just trying to get to know people's movie tastes. If you're just joining us, we're doing some warm up. We'll start a couple minutes after the hour. This is Netflix Wicked Hard Decisions. My name is Gib. And do any of have any of you watched BoJack Horseman? This is my bizarre, twisted one.
Oh.
I'm an absolute fan.
Yeah.
What? Did someone say they were a fan?
Yeah, Sylvia here, and I said I'm absolutely a fan.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. Okay, so Sylvia and I have quirky movie taste, so I appreciate that. What are some other stuff that you like?
I mean, there has been another weird one, Birdie and Tuca, that I've been absolutely hooked on.
Ooh, I'll have to check Birdie and Tuca. I haven't watched that yet. Good. Well, I'm just trying to get... Go ahead, Eric.
We got an update from Brett from San Jose. It's blue skies, much cleaner air.
Thank you, Brent, for the update. I could feel a touch of winter in the air at Boston. I usually live in Burlingame, Brent, but I'm in Boston for 7 weeks. Okay, here's I call this a provisional decision. I give you very little data, very little information. And the question is, should Netflix enable its members to fast forward and to watch their movie and TV shows on a mobile device a little bit faster, to play at 120% speed or 150% speed, or a little bit slower, to play at 80% speed or maybe 60%. So I refer to that as custom playback speed. Seema, is that a good idea or a bad idea? What do you think? What's your gut instinct on this one?
For me, it's a very good idea because I usually listen, watch the documentaries, and I really like to be able to fit as many documentaries as possible in a very short amount of time. And I'm
Got
also a little bit not very patient to wait until see what's really going on. So I feel like it's a very good feature to have.
Got it. Good. And Eric, what's the count on YouTube?
We're up 50 people.
All right. We'll give them a minute more and then we'll just start. The question I'm most curious about is just to know where folks are. Let's see, Christopher, you want to explain it, how to use Slido?
Sure. So it's really easy. It's browser based. So you just pull out your phone, scan the QR code, and click on the link, and you're set.
How about explaining it in Swedish for me?
Absolut. Så att det du gör är bara att ta fram din telefon, du scannar QR-koden och sen så klickar du på länken. Sen så bara köra.
Yeah, that sounded easy. Okay, a lot of folks from Stockholm, not a surprise. Cool. I'm seeing it. Nobody else from Boston. That's where I am right now. So sad. Okay, what's the count, Eric?
55.
Okay, we'll quickly scan through these. What's weighing most heavily on folks' mind? Which of these? Oh, and what's our guess on the lag? Is it about 10-second lag from StreamYard to YouTube?
Yeah, roughly 10 seconds.
Okay, so I should be slightly patient. It's hard for me to be patient. Very, very hard. Eric, any of these responses surprise you?
No, not really. I mean, no one has mentioned the recession. I guess everybody's product managers and high-paying jobs.
Yeah, well,
I
some
guess.
of us are doing online groceries. That's a pretty good thing to be in right now, right, Christopher?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that switch.
Yeah. Okay, and I'm curious to know how many folks out there have watched Stranger Things. You guys got to remember the percentages for me. It's relevant a little bit later. Let's see, Sylvia, were you my fellow BoJack fan? Is it you?
Yes, that was me.
Yes. Yeah. Cool. Well, let's find out how many BoJack Horseman fans are out there besides me and Sylvia.
Oh no.
Oh no. Yes, your movie and TV shows truly are quirky. Okay, and then provisional decision. This is just a quickie. Provisional decision means with no information, what does your gut instinct say? Should you let Netflix members, when they're watching on a mobile device, speed up the speed of their TV shows or movies so they can watch it at 120%, or slow it down because they're listening in a second language documentary maybe. So there we go. All right, and we'll be doing Q&A. You can do that. You can, if you look down at your Slido, you'll see you can answer questions now. You can upvote them, and we'll be doing Q&A through the YouTube chat as well. All right, Eric, you want to talk a little bit about ProductTank and what's going on today?
Love to. So, hi and welcome everybody to ProductTank Stockholm. We have a lot of new people joining us today, so I'll do a brief background of what we're doing here. So we're running these meetups in around 180-ish cities all across the world, and we're bringing the mission is to bring product people together to become better at the trade, essentially learning from each other and in trade learnings. And today we have a visit from the US of A. We have Gibson Biddle with us today, who was vice president of product at Netflix from 2005 until 2010. After that, he left Netflix and founded Chegg, which is a textbook rental company, which IPO'd a bit later. So Gib, welcome and thank you for joining us. What will you teach us today?
Thanks, Eric. I want to talk about wicked hard decisions, and I know that doesn't translate. It just means tough decisions. And Eric gave you my background. I joined Netflix in 2005 and then went to my next startup, Chegg, in 2010. And then the past bunch of years, I'm largely a teacher, which I really love to do. I don't know how many folks out there have watched Good Will Hunting, but I'm actually in Boston now, and the word wicked, everyone in Boston says wicked. My boy's wicked smart is the Boston accent that it's used in Good Will Hunting. And that's what today's talk is about, these wicked, tough decisions. And the question is, are they, to make consistently great decisions about people, product, or the business, is it about strategic genius or practice art? And for me, it's a practice art. So we'll have an opportunity to practice today. I'm going to do quite a few case studies today. That's why I was setting folks up with Slido. And the key thing with cases is I give you just a teeny bit of information, and you're allowed to ask more questions. You can ask questions using YouTube chat. But Seema and Sylvia and Christopher and Eric will be sort of proxy. I'll be talking with them, but just go for it. Ask questions about these cases within chat. But because I want you to form an opinion, and then I'm hoping to have a little bit of debate. So I'm going to throw you into the shallow end of the pool right away, and then we'll back up, and I'll give you a lot more context. But Netflix began as a DVD by mail company. These red envelopes would go back and forth. You'd create a list of movies, your queue. And as soon as you return one, they'd send the next to you. We didn't launch streaming until January of 2007. And this word throttling was invented for us because we were accused of throttling in 2005. Because what was going on was our biggest problem was everybody wanted the new release DVDs about 2 months after they came out in the theaters. And we didn't have enough for everybody. So when the new release DVDs would come out 2 months after the movie came out in the theater, we'd have 50,000 copies of a disc, but 100,000 people wanted them. And we just couldn't afford to buy 100,000 discs. And then we also knew that 6 weeks later, that demand would pass. So the question I'm going to put to everybody is, when you have this shortage of discs, who should you give them to first? And so I'm going to use Slido to get, I'm sort of asking an algorithmic question. How do you allocate the scarce resource? Seema, who would you give these first DVDs to, given you've got such a scarce resource? Who should get them? Who should get them?
I would say the ones who have been the most loyal to the company. Maybe the VIP customers get it first.
Yeah. So Seema's suggesting that the loyal customers, the long-term members, should get better service than the newbies that have just joined. Sylvia, what do you think of that? You got another algorithm for me? Who should get the discs?
My first idea was parents for some reason, because kids are really good at talking with movies each other, so that can create some interesting effect of spreading the word of something cool.
Yeah. Well, now I'm seeing some consensus around new customers. It's the opposite of what Seema said, which is, should you give a better experience to the brand new customers? And how are the old customers going to be thinking about this? The highest bidder, that's great. So if people pay, they can get the disc earlier. I'm not seeing the simplest algorithm. What would be the very simplest algorithm? Oh, I see first come, first serve. So the first person to put it on the top of their list gets it the first. And what would be another simple algorithm for this? You got any ideas, Eric or Christopher? Random. That's great. So that would be the simplest. All right. So I'll tell you what happened, which is we actually did something a little bit complicated, which is if a customer had watched 5 or 10 or 15 discs that last month, they had gotten a lot of value out of the service. And so we put them at the end of the line. And then if you had watched only one disc, then you got the disc right away. You hadn't gotten as much value that last month. And our problem was that we failed to disclose this in our terms of use, which is a big mistake. And this is the terms of use that none of you have ever read. But because of this, we were sued in a $5 million class action lawsuit. Now, I really wish that we had done it randomly, and I certainly had wished that we hadn't failed to describe this practice that these two bright class action lawyers called throttling. But this was where the word was invented, and it was invented for us. Today, you know it. You fear that you're being throttled when you're using too much bandwidth. In this case, is really a very simple question, which is you just got sued by these two bright class action lawyers for $5 million. For perspective, Netflix is at about 200 million in revenues. 5 million. If we made 5 million in profit that year, we would have been wicked happy. So a $5 million lawsuit feels like a lot. And the question I'm putting out to the crowd is, would you fight the lawsuit, go to court, or would you just settle, pay the money? Christopher, what's your instinct on this one?
My gut tells me to just settle. Just settle.
Because tell me why. Tell me why. Yeah, tell me why.
I think there's more important stuff for the company to focus on than to fight this lawsuit.
That's right. And what's the downside of settling with these two class action lawyers? What's the bad part of that?
I mean, first, of course, it costs a lot of money. Then if there's any repercussions on what you could do with the company, I don't really know.
Yeah. So the real problem is if you settle the first lawsuit you're engaged in, every patent troll on the face of the earth comes out, right, and they sue you for everything else. All right. So let's just find out what the wisdom of crowds here, and then I'll tell you the answer, what happened. So if you haven't done it yet, the easiest way to use Slido is to hold up your phone as though you're taking a photo, and a link will magically pop up because of that QR code. And then you can let us know what you think. Seema, which way are you going on this one?
I think I would start with fighting the lawsuit, but
yeah,
somehow in the middle, I would try to settle to just kind of meet the both sides.
Yeah. Well, I'll surprise you with the response. I'm actually quite surprised. Throughout Europe, folks aren't as litigious as folks in the United States are. So I'm surprised that we have so many fighters, because it's hard to give up the $5 million. So I'm gonna just tell you what happened here. I keep seeing it. It's leaning more and more towards the fight, which I appreciate. So this is what happened, and I'll tell you a lot more in a second. In this choice, we actually fought, and we fought hard, and then we settled. And what happened was we got engaged in this lawsuit, and the headlines throughout the United States, every time they talked about Netflix, they would talk about us as throttlers. And the fighting lasted about a year, and every headline was negative about us. So just the invention of that word was really, really smart of these class action lawyers. So it essentially hurt our brand. Another part of this is that we thought this was a low stakes decision. We didn't worry or think too much about it. We made a quick decision to fight, to keep the other patent trolls away. And we just thought it was ridiculous. We hadn't really done anything wrong, was our thinking. It wasn't really that impactful. And so the first thing that I learned was details matter. So since that moment, I've always had product leaders check the terms of use every 2 weeks to make sure that there was nothing wrong. And then the important learning for me was the difference between high stakes decision and low stakes decision. So this was, in truth, a high stakes decision where we treated it as a low stakes. The magnitude was large, and it was hard to reverse. So by definition, if it's a high magnitude and hard to reverse decision, it's a high stakes decision. Most of the decisions that we make are low stakes, but unfortunately in this case, and we shouldn't trouble ourselves. And we thought it was low stake, but we were totally wrong. There was a little bit of good in this, which is we were still a young startup, and we looked around at all the practices we were engaged in, and we said, is there anything else that we're doing that we would be embarrassed about, that we wouldn't want people to know about? And so all of those yicky practices, we either fully disclosed, we were fully transparent, or we just stopped engaging in them. And that was a nice sort of turning moment for us, beginning to turn into a good company. So I just was giving you a little practice in cases. And now I'm going to back up and I'm going to give you a lot more context about Netflix. I'm going to give you some of the history, some of the strategy. And then I got two more cases. One is from like 2010. Another one is a modern day case. And then I'm going to back up and abstract out some of these decision-making principles. Eric, everything good?
Yes,
Good. You're doing great. All right, so here we are back in 1999, and this is when the company started, and my theory is that all startups suck at the beginning. If you look carefully, it had about 2,600 DVDs to mail. It was about $5. It would take like a week to get to your desk. And then you can see it was starting to get better by 2007. And then I just did a screen capture of my site experience last night. So you can see some progress. And so here's the brief history of Netflix. It began in 1997 when Mark Randolph, the co-founder, sent a DVD to the other co-founder, Reed Hastings. And it was actually not a DVD, it was an audio CD. And it arrived unscratched and unbroken. And this is when the DVD players were just being born and they realized they could send it through the mail. In 2000, they finally latched on to the idea of, I call it an all-you-can-eat DVD by mail subscription. Before that moment in time, it was a la carte. You'd pay $5 or so. And then in 2002, the company went public very early, and they only had 600,000 subscribers, and it was a really messy, dirty IPO because there was an anthrax scare. So people were afraid of dying, afraid of opening their red envelopes for fear of this white powder killing them. And then in 2005, we spent almost a year to launch into the UK. A DVD by mail service, but then with 1 week to go, we changed our mind because we realized it didn't make sense to expand to the rest of the world until we were an all digital service. So we actually did that, by 2010. In 2007, we launched Watch Instantly on the PC. We used something called Silverlight, which sucked for the DRM. We only had 300 titles, and our customers described them as steamy romance, which is kind of code for something else. In 2010 was the first launch of a streaming only service. We launched into Canada. And then by 2013, that's when the original content that Netflix is well known for today, House of Cards, was first launched. And then by 2017, the company was in 190 countries. Today, it's at 195 million members. The market cap's about 240 billion. And they got 160 nominations for Emmys. That was a new world record. Last night, they were still beaten by HBO, who had 30 awards, and I think Netflix had like 22. But the idea that a DVD by mail company could now compete in original content with HBO is really extraordinary. The product vision, we said we were going to initially get big on DVD. That's how we were sort of the beachhead that we were going to establish for ourselves. And then once we were big enough on DVD, we were going to lead. It was called downloading. The language of streaming didn't exist when we launched in 2007. And then once we were an all digital service, then and only then we would expand worldwide. And then the fourth step for the company was essentially original content, which you can see. This is sort of 4 steps. This is a long-term product vision that came true. And the whole time we were trying to build this virtuous cycle. The idea was the more customers that we had, the more devices. So in the early days, it was very hard to get somebody to agree to pre-wire their hardware device, their PlayStation or their Sony or their Xbox, to let you watch where you wanted, which was on a TV. But the more devices, then the more big screen TVs, if you will, the more content. And then the more customers we'd have, and that virtuous cycle has gone on. Almost every device in the world is magically pre-wired. Netflix obviously has a ton of content and 195 million members. So that worked out. The way that I define the product leader's job, it's really quite simple and it's extraordinarily hard. But the way I say is it's your job to delight customers in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. Where margin enhancing is just a fancy way to say make money, develop profits so you can invest more in building an even better product in the future. And I'm expecting that most of you are Netflix members or you're using someone else's account, which is totally fine. But these are all the things that delight you. And it took us a long while to figure those things out. So I want you to think for a little bit about what's hard to copy about Netflix. So this was in 2005, is what the site looked like. HB Mock came to me. He was really excited because he found a better page to communicate to customers what Netflix was. This is the front door of our site. And he put a happy family on the couch, and more people joined the service because of this. And I said, that's great. You delighted folks. You improved the business, but this isn't very hard to copy. And I said within a month, Blockbuster, that was our big competition at the moment, that they would copy our work. And I was exactly right. So, within a month, Blockbuster had put a happy family on their couch too. This is just illustrating why it's important to do stuff that's delightful, that helps build the business, but also is hard to copy. So what I want you thinking about right now is what makes Netflix hard to copy. If I gave you 500 million bucks to compete, to build a startup to compete with Netflix, what would you find so hard about that? And I'm hoping that you guys will all build a word cloud for us. As before, just hold up your phone, and the QR code will magically link a Slido thing. Oh, let's see. Seema, what do you think? What would be hard about copying Netflix?
I would say the front end, the user experience that I will get by going there, and then I think the AI that they're using is quite smart.
Yeah, there's some unique technology that's wicked helpful. Yeah. Sylvia, what are your thoughts? What's hard to copy, or what do you see here in this word cloud?
Yeah, I was thinking about the recommendation engine, and over time having really good data about customers. Yeah,
totally. I'm totally with you. So now I'm looking. So actually all of the things that I look for are there, which is totally cool. Okay, so I'm gonna give you my answer. This is great. We got a great crowd. So there's really 4 buckets of ideas. The first is the brand. I saw that. We were trying to build a product where movie enjoyment was made easy. I joked that my brand partner wanted to tattoo that phrase, movie enjoyment made easy, to my forearm. I didn't. This is not a phrase that we use with customers, but that's the product we were trying to build. There's a network effect. It turns out that getting every device manufacturer, every screen in the world to pre-wire their work for you is wicked hard to do. And then there's unique technology. Sorry, Eric, can you see? Everything's cool, right, Eric?
Everything's really cool.
Good. Okay. I had a weird experience here. There's unique technology in the personalization. And then the original content, I will describe that as an economy of scale. So Netflix is able to spend $20 billion a year on content, whereas poor Amazon can only spend $8 billion, or combined Disney and Hulu is at about $8 billion. So if you get big, you have this huge economy of scale that gives you a huge advantage. So those are these are 4 ideas that I'm used to seeing with startups that make them hard to copy. And then building out a business, today it's an all unique subscription. We did lots of price and plan tests. You might notice that every year your price goes up about $1 a year, really, so they can afford more original content for you. We used to sell used discs. We used to do advertising. This is all part of, lots of experiments to make a business that works. But one of the substantial ideas that works today, I call it right-sizing your original content investment. So Netflix, because it knows the member taste of 195 million members, if I recall, about 60% have watched Stranger Things. Netflix made a guess that 100 million people would enjoy Stranger Things, and because of that, they made a $500 million investment in the content. And then they made a guess that about 20 million would watch BoJack Horseman. This is all based on their personalization data. And because of that, they made a $100 million investment. So this is taking advantage of all that personalization data to make the right investment on the right stuff. They really want to deliver all storytelling content. The key thing is they get it right. So 1 million folks are freaks like me that like watching Everest climbing documentaries. And so they invest $5 million in that. And that's one of the substantial advantages that Netflix has. So now think about Netflix. Your job is to delight customers in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. And these are all the theories that we had like in 2005. These were our guesses about what would do that holy grail of delight, hard to copy, and margin. And look, here's 8 ideas, and look at it for a minute and ask yourself, how many of those ideas worked? And the answer will surprise you. Really, only 3 of those high-level hypotheses work at first. And then later, we retried 2 of the ideas so that we had opened up the application programming interfaces. We were hoping that there'd be a lot of innovation by the community, and there wasn't. But that was actually the magic that let us pre-wire these TV devices. And then we actually had tested exclusives or originals in 2008, 2009. It failed, but obviously by 2013 in a streaming-only world with House of Cards, it worked great. And this is just to say this is hard. Look in that bottom left. We experimented with Friends and Social in movies. And it turns out Friends and Social doesn't work very well in movies, really for 2 reasons. First, your friends have really sucky movie tastes. And then the second, you don't really want everybody to know what you were watching last night. Eric was watching Cake Boss last night. He's not proud of it. Is that true, Eric?
100% true. You know me too well.
You can defend yourself. All right. So the product strategy, the ideas that worked, we were very focused on personalization. In the old days of getting the DVD disc the next day in the mail, but clearly Streamlink does that. I can't remember if it was Seema or Sylvia who talked about the interface, but just keeping things simple was really important. I've talked about the device ecosystem. And then margin enhancement is so important that we're very focused on that as a high-level strategy. And then these are the projects or tactics against each of those strategies on the left. And at any moment in time, we had proxy metrics to describe how we were doing. So the highest level metric at Netflix was retention. In the early days, like at startup, 10% of our customers canceled every month. By 2005, about 4.5% canceled. Today, only 2% cancel each month. But the problem with retention is it's really hard to move. So we had proxy metrics. So we actually had kind of really interesting lower level proxy metrics that were easier to move. So personalization was an interesting one. Our proxy was, what's the percentage of members that rated at least 50 movies, 50, in their first 2 months with the service? And our thinking was that they would let us know about how much they liked or disliked a movie because they appreciated and valued the results that they got back, that they realized that we were doing a better and better job of creating a personalized experience. So that was our proxy metric for personalization. So I want you to think for a minute. Take a guess. At what percentage of members provided at least 50 pieces of taste data about the movies that they liked or didn't like? And we viewed this as if they gave us a lot of data, it was a proxy for saying, we value personalization because the main reason we're doing this is to get better and better movie ideas from you. Seema, are you a youthful enthusiast or a curmudgeon on this one?
I actually do rate a lot. So I'm going to go for maybe 10 to 20%.
Good. I like your enthusiasm. Christopher, where do you end up on this one?
I'm more pessimistic.
Yeah. What's your number? What's your number?
So I'm guessing at 0 to 5%.
Got it. Eric, where did you fall on this one?
I don't think it's small, but I remember the Swedish version called like Love Film or something. They had some kind of wizard or something, and I remember I spent like hours clicking rating movies there. It was so fun.
Well, I'll tell you the answer. We got it up to 28%. So surprisingly high, and it was based on this movement of the proxy metric that we kept investing more and more and more in personalization. And we weren't actually, Netflix wasn't able to prove that personalization actually improved retention until like 2012 or 2013. But it was because of that proxy metric going up on the right, we kept investing more and more. This is hard stuff. My message here is, keep calm and use the scientific method. So a lot of these questions, were actually pretty easy to figure out because we could A/B test them. So we had gotten 10 billion star ratings, and then this punk startup called Facebook came along with an easier, we had a 5-star rating system, and they came along with thumbs up or thumbs down, and they went international before Netflix did. And so we just A/B tested, okay, 5-star system versus the Facebook thing. And Netflix was able to get twice as much data using the simple gesture of up and down. And that's an instance where just A/B testing makes these decisions easier. All right, so I've given you lots of upfront context to how to think about Netflix and its strategy and this idea of consumer science. So I got 2 more wicked hard decisions for you. And so these are real cases. One is from the old days, and then the one after that is a modern day case where Netflix really needs your help making a decision. So it's 2007. Our aspiration is to get to the television. And we're too small to talk, the TV game systems at the time, the PlayStation, the Wii, the Xbox, into working with us. And only 10% of our members were streaming. This is our Proxy metric, only watched at least 15 minutes in a month. So we had a small library, those 300 titles. But we know that our customers desperately want to get to the television. In fact, we did a painted door test where we told our members that click here and we'll charge you $100 and we'll send you a magic device in the mail. And as soon as they did that, a magic device that would connect Netflix to your television. And when they said yes, we said, sorry, it's not available in your zip code. But we knew that people were eager to give us $100 to buy this device. And so we built a device. And this is at a time where no other partner would work with us. And so we put $15 million into the project, about 2 years, about 100 engineers, and we built this magic box. However, Barry McCarthy, our CFO, he came back from New York City and he said, I don't think this is going to work. We're now 1 month away from launching this new magic box that our customers are dying for. And he says the investors on Wall Street are deeply wary. And the reason was because they were afraid we were going to become a hardware manufacturer with low margin. It's really hard to compete in the hardware industry. And then the partners were wary. And by partners, we mean the people that wouldn't work with us. Xbox, Wii, PlayStation, some of the Blu-ray players. And Barry says this plan sucks. We shouldn't launch. But we've got 2 years, we've got our customers dying for the service. And the question I'm going to put to you in this case is, with the data that I've given you, would you launch the device or not launch? And that's what I'm curious to hear from everybody out there using Slido. Sylvia, where do you fall on this one? Which way do you lean and why?
My first thought was definitely yes. If for anything, just to learn from the launch. Like, is the first step something like this is to be done? Yeah.
And then what's your second thought?
Well, what the investors say, they have a lot of power, right? So it's hard to ignore what they want.
Is this a hard or easy decision?
No, it sounds like a tough one.
It's a wicked hard decision. Christopher, where do you fall on this one?
I would probably launch as well. Completely agree that it's a really hard decision, but given the interest from the customers, it looks like the sound thing to do.
Yeah, okay, and I see the audience is slightly leaning forward, right? Eric, where are you on this one?
Oh, it's a tough one. I mean, on one hand, when you think of the kind of sunken cost, you spent 15 million on this. However, I think Christopher mentioned it before, the kind of focus thing. I think that's important also if you want to spend a lot of time in the kind of like device manufacturing.
What's this concept of sunk costs? What were you referring to there?
Oh, it's just one way to like rationalize. You spent like 15 million on it already. It's very easy to fall into the into the fallacy that we need to launch. We spent 50 million on this.
So what Eric's saying is the key thing is not forget the fact that you spent the money. What do you invest in going forward? And this is the argument of sunk costs. All right, so you're curious. We chose not to launch. Okay, so I want to give you some of the learning. And I spent a lot of time finding a underwater piggy bank to illustrate the concept of sunk costs. So in this case, we already brought it up, which is it doesn't matter that you spent the money. The question is, what do you want to invest in going forward? And we didn't really want to invest in hardware. We want to invest in getting more great content. And we wanted to invest in the personalization, some of those hard to copy things. And then this is part of the culture of Netflix and Eric brought this up as well, that it was going to be hard to be great at things like original content and streaming, but also to be a hardware company. That, like, it's going to be a huge and long learning curve for us. And the other important thing culturally is that Barry McCarthy, the CFO, had the audacity to stand up in front of a 200-person organization and say, "Stop! We should not ship this." And that's part of the Netflix culture. For me, this is sort of the difference between urgent versus important. It was important that we get to these TV-based devices, but it didn't have to happen, that month. And what actually happened is the Xbox finally said yes about a year later when we had some more content, some more members. They were the number 3 game system. So they were trying to compete with the Wii and PlayStation. They were behind. And their first month, they had 1 million customers watching Netflix streaming to Xbox. And because of that, PlayStation and Wii said, we want it. And then, of course, it eventually expanded to the rest of the world. And so if you're trying to build a platform, and that's what Netflix has become, you can't have the inside track. You can't make your own device because people will perceive that you have an advantage over the rest of the other partner that are on that platform. And what happened is we threw all the engineers out of the building, and this is the formation story for Roku. So all of the engineers that worked on our Magic Box internally, we threw them out of the building, and they started this company called Roku. And I suspect you've seen them all over the world. Okay, my second case is a modern case. And I had asked that provisional decision up front, which was, hey, with no information, do you think this is a good or bad idea? And so the question, and this is a today case for Netflix, this is a case that they're struggling with, so they really need your help. And the question is, should Netflix enable on mobile devices its members to speed up or slow down? If you're, pre-COVID days, if you're on a train and you have a 50-minute TV episode, and you only have 45 minutes, could you watch it a little bit faster? And this is the case. And I want to give you a little bit of consumer insight. Seema and Sylvia, I recall that you guys have been watching stuff faster on YouTube. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct. Both faster and slower.
Yeah. So when do you do it faster?
Working out, running. It feels like a better fit.
Yeah. And when do you do it slower? For
me, it's language learning. It's a bit easier to understand.
When you're learning Swedish?
Exactly that.
Yeah. Seema, when do you use this feature?
I do. Yes, when I'm just want to go faster and see what happened at the end, or I'm running out of time, or sometimes I feel like the people in the movie speak quite slow, so I just want to speed it up.
Yeah. Okay. So this is one of the most requested features for Netflix members, and it's been pioneered by both YouTube and podcasts. And so Netflix did test this. Any of my panel want to guess at the biggest concern about launching this feature or even testing this feature? Who are they afraid is going to see what's going on? What could possibly go wrong here? Who's going to be pissed if Netflix does this?
I know from I've been involved in like music and stuff like that. So when you listen to podcasts and they have music in the podcasts, the music sounds really, really, really weird when you listen to it by 1.5 speed. So I guess,
keep going.
Yeah, so I guess something like I don't think the artists would like it if I listen to.
Absolutely.
To it.
Okay, so there's real concern about this, and Netflix said, okay, we're going to test only on mobile devices and only in New Zealand, and maybe nobody will notice. Okay. So, Eric, you ready for a dramatic reading? The studios noticed. So you want to read this juicy quote for me from Judd Apatow?
I don't do a very good Judd Apatow impression, but I'll try here. Netflix, don't make me call every director and show creator on earth to fight you. I will win.
Good.
Strong,
okay,
strong
and here's
words.
Another, here's another juicy quote. Christopher, you want to do this one?
There is no way Netflix will move forward with this. That would mean they're taking control of others' art and destroying it.
Okay, so they've noticed just this little test in New Zealand on mobile-only devices, and they are pissed. All right, so you already know what the studio response is. And the question is, what metrics do you look at? So you're not going to get enough data to know if this is going to improve retention. But the question, if it's useful enough by enough members, then you can get a sense of whether it could ever actually improve retention. So the metric that they looked at was what percentage of members use this feature at least twice in a month. If only once in a month, it might be my mistake. But if they used it twice, if they, as Seema and Sylvia suggested, sped it up or slowed it down twice in the course of a month, it's real useful. It's got real usefulness. And in this case, just imagine if you had 25% of your customers using it at least twice in the course of a month. If that is the degree of usefulness you get, you have a shot at actually improving retention. That, if something is used, imagine you're the product leader and 25% of members use this new feature of yours. You've got a real shot at improving retention. Whereas if only 5% use it, you probably don't have a shot at it. So that's the metric here. And imagine you get 25% of your members using it. Now you've got a real shot at delighting them. They want it, they need it, and hard to copy. And the case here is this is really hard to do and thus hard to copy. Netflix is able to do it without making people sound funny or without screwing up their lip sync. It'll be 4 or 5 years before a Hulu or an Amazon or a Disney could do this. And the margin enhancement is going to come one of two ways. If enough people use this and they like it, it might give them just a little reason not to quit the service. And the other way is if they rave about this feature to their friends. It brings more members into the system. However, the studios are already livid. They're pissed, and you rely on the studios for all the content that exists on the platform. So I put it to everybody. Would you launch or not launch? And I want to see what you think via Slido. Christopher, which way are you leaning on this one?
I'm leaning towards a no. So we said that the content was one of the most important things on the platform. And if we're pissing off the content producers, maybe they were going to drop off the platform. So yeah, I don't know. My gut feeling is that we shouldn't launch this.
Got it. Now, Christopher, I said your job is to delight customers in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. Did I say anything about studios to you?
No, but that's part of the hard to copy for me.
Yeah, if you're saying without content, without that original content, exactly. Because of the economy of scale, that's part of it. Okay, Seema, are you surprised by the results here in any way?
No, not really.
Which way do you go? Which way do you go?
I think I'm more towards yes, but I would start very small. Like I would release it to a smaller target to see the reaction.
You like the A/B tests have spoken, and the studios are going to find out no matter what you do.
Exactly.
Are you a yes or a no? Are you a yes or a no?
Then it's yes, probably.
I love it. Okay, yeah. So this is a real case, and Netflix has just started rolling out this feature that they're starting on Android. And people in the world will see it, and a couple of months later, we'll see it on iOS. So there you have it. And so I want to give you some of the thinking behind it. So this is about customer obsession. When I was playing with Christopher, the customer obsession is about being maniacal in support of your customers and delighting them in these hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. And that's the job. And honestly, I would be delighted as a product leader if 25% of members use something that I created. And then the interesting part about this is a cultural issue at Netflix. Netflix believes in tightly aligned and loosely coupled, which is this It means everybody in the building understands the strategy for the different functions, whether it's product or content team. This is a product decision. So this is not a content team decision. Content team makes decisions about what content is going to show up on the platform. And they don't have to weigh in. They don't have to tightly couple with product. In this case, product makes the decision independently, and they chose to do this. And the rationale is this is about creative destruction. In the 1920s, you had black and white movies with no sound, and people were pissed when sound came along, and they were pissed when it went to color. And then the traditional animators were pissed when Pixar came out in the 90s with computer generated stuff, right? And so this storytelling and technology is always changing. And the idea is that this is just another illustration of how technology changed in order to make a better experience for the watchers. So this is where Netflix is today. It's wonderfully simple. It's personalized. You get stuff at the click of a button. There's this huge device and even a studio ecosystem. It turns out that when you spend $20 billion a year, the studios will continue to work with you. Because remember, Amazon's only spending like $8 billion. And for the most part, the studios really like working with Netflix because they give a lot of creative latitude. There's a ton of original content. Netflix has been bringing stories from all over the world to everyone around the world. Storytellers just love having their stories be seen and watched and understood by 195 million people worldwide. And it's a brand that we trust. Every month they're nicely hitting our credit card. So I just want to back up for a second and just talk about some of the decision-making principles that I've found helpful. The first thing is doing just what we've been doing, which is ask questions, form an opinion, and then engage in debate. And this is the behavior that you want with your product teams when you're talking about these decisions. And then I work with lots of teams all over the world, and generally, most of them are capable of getting it right about 50% time. And I'm trying to get them to 70%, but I'm not trying to get them to 90 or 100%, because if I did, then they probably would be playing it too safe. And you got to take on risk all the time if you're reinventing or inventing the future. Some stuff, it's really, really helpful to have strategy, tactics, and these proxy metrics that help you evaluate how you're doing. And this idea of consumer science, that these decisions are much better, faster, easier if you have some data. It could be focus group data, it could be A/B test results, it could be survey data, all of these things. But that's, for me, what consumer science is all about: getting information and data about what will delight customers or not. And then the next thing I think about is framing the stakes. So that first throttling decision, big mistake by my part. I thought it was a low stakes decision. It was truly high stakes. And so for all these decisions, if it's low stakes, which is small magnitude and easy to reverse, I don't worry about as much. But I give extra time and attention to the high stakes decision, like whether or not we should launch our own TV-based device. Most of the decisions we make as product leaders are actually low stakes because they're small in magnitude and they're totally reversible if you get it wrong. And then don't procrastinate. If you feel like you got about 70% of the data that you need, just make a decision and go. That trying to get the additional 30% information just takes too much time. And generally, speed is good in making decisions. And then embrace risk, and from time to time you're going to get it wrong, and that's okay. And that will encourage you to stay humble. With Netflix, I think most folks are aware. I just want you to be vaguely aware of how culture, and that's the definition of different values, culture actually informs the decisions. Occasionally in these decisions, it was actually the culture that helped people to make the decisions. Netflix is all about candor, and it was that candor that led to us getting really good at debate, decide, and do. And it's all about curiosity, and that gave birth to this idea of customer obsession, just being maniacal and how could we delight them. And then the culture is about courage. Think about Barry McCarthy standing up in front of the team and saying, "Stop, don't launch." And that got to the place of focus where the company chose not to go into hardware. And it's the courage to say no to stuff that gave Netflix its focus today. So I just want to quickly, Eric, you can drop in the link to I wrote an article on Medium called 10 Habits for Making Wicked Hard Decisions. It's worth reading. You can drop it into the chat. that it's all about asking questions. A couple of times today, I asked you to make provisional decisions with just a little bit of information, and then ask what additional data do you need to make that decision. Think about, is this a high stake or low stakes? And give more thought and care to the high stakes decisions. And then have the customer's voice in your head when you're reflecting on this. That's probably the biggest mistake I see make. Imagine if people just made the decision based on what will the studios think. Make sure you're aggressively advocating for your customer. And then be open to these big long-term bets. How does the long-term strategy affect your decision? In the case of the choice not to do hardware, it wasn't part of our strategy to be hardware manufacturers. We were just trying to talk anybody into it. So we just had to be patient. The product strategy, that's one idea. Your job is to delight customers in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways, informs lots of great decisions. And then think about culture. Is there something about your values that indicate which way you should go on a decision? And then get 70% of the data and then make a decision and go. And just two more ideas. Once you make a decision, just commit to it. The worst thing is if you make the decision and then everybody in the building is second guessing. You're committed. Stick with it. And then when you get wrong, the important thing is just commit to the learning. So the article on Medium, it's got like 5,000 upvotes or whatever, talks about all of this in detail. And so these are these 10 habits of making great decisions. I'm going to end with just one thought. This is Reid Hoffman. He's sort of famous. He's the chairman of LinkedIn, but he was a famous angel investor. And he asked Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix. He said, Reed, it was kind of jokey podcast because they're both named Reed. It was goofy. But he asked the other Reed, what's more important, culture, strategy, or consumer science? And Reed Hastings looked at him like he was stupid. And he said, yes. It's actually all three of those things that are wicked important for helping Netflix to be the big deal that it is today. So with that, I'll say thank you. If you know me, I'm not quite done, so don't leave as yet. I'm way into consumer science. And this is that moment where I feel like I'm a street performer doing my thing, and I am passing the hat. But I'm not asking you for money, so don't run away. I just love your feedback. So this QR code, if you use your phone for this, and Eric, this is an awesome time to drop the Net Promoter Score survey in. It will take you to SurveyMonkey. And 0 sucks, 10 is great. Choose any number from 0, which is bad, to 10, which is great. Any number on that scale. And then there's 2 more questions. What's one thing that was good about today's talk and one thing that could be better? This is my 570th survey. This is my 75th survey since March 12th, since the lockdown. This is how I learn. And your feedback is incredibly helpful. I've gotten amazing insight from people all over the world. So Eric, yeah, it'd be great if you could drop the SurveyMonkey link into the chat within YouTube. It's incredibly helpful to me. And I would just love, love, love your feedback. Eric's also providing the link. My baby website's got the PDF of the presentation is sitting and waiting for you. He's dropping the PDF in right now as we speak. And I think you already know about the article I wrote on Medium about making these wicked hard decisions. Just want to give a plug. I'm doing a product strategy workshop shortly. Eric's got a link for this as well with Crisp, a local firm in Stockholm. But if you want to spend time in a virtual experience, I've been doing this for a long time. It's great fun. But if you want to spend a lot of time on product strategy, it's a great forum. With that, I'm revealing my guilty pleasure, which is Tiger King, and just saying thank you for real. And I've got a little bit of time to ask questions. You can ask questions using Slido and chat and messaging. In 5 minutes, I'll release you if you want, but I'm going to hang out forever until there are no more questions. So I'd love, love, love it if you ask questions using Slido and upvote there. You can also use the YouTube chat function to ask questions. And Christopher, Seema, and Eric are here as well. So thanks, Eric. You were just totally solid on the producing on the fly. I loved it. You make me look good, which is really wicked hard. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good.
I think
okay.
While we wait to the YouTube stream to sync with I think I can start off with a question.
Yeah.
That is right on the money here. Disney Plus just launched in Sweden.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah, just launched here. So what do we think about Disney Plus? I mean, they have the great content. They're very good at making content. Perhaps not a technology company. Will they manage to overtake Netflix, or will they give Netflix a run for the money at least?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I have a strong thought. So I mean, it's pretty dramatic, which is they in their first 6 months went from 0 members to 50 million members. And just to give you a sense, their plan was to get to 50 million 2 years later. So it's unbelievable success in the launch. In the earnings call, Reed Hastings just said, congratulations, which is to say, Netflix is not very threatened by this. And I'll just tell you why. So this is not a zero-sum game, which is, Eric, I'm guessing you are a subscriber to Disney Plus, but you're also a subscription to Netflix. You don't quit Netflix because of Disney Plus. So of course, there's families all over the world that are getting Disney for their kids, but they're also sticking with Netflix, okay? And that's one of the reasons that Netflix isn't particularly threatened. And then the other idea is that they've been so focused on these things that delight that are hard to copy and improve margin as well. And so just to be clear, at the time that Disney went from 0 to 50 million in members, in 1 quarter, Netflix expected to get 15 million new members, so they actually had about 30 million. So they grew faster too, and in large part because of COVID. But it just indicated that their growth was not slowed down because of the fabulous success of Disney. And honest to God, Reed just congratulated them. He said, they executed incredibly well. By contrast, HBO has been struggling out of the gate. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. That's a great question, Eric. Thank you.
So if you have any questions, just shoot on the YouTube chat or in Slido. We'll answer them. While you think of really tough and wicked hard questions for Gabe,
I take easy ones too.
I'll take easy ones too. Right. Right. I can shoot another one. So you've been away from Netflix for a while. If you magically would go back and be VP of product again, what would be your first priority, like product wise?
So my job as a product leader is to help people execute well today, but I tend to look out into the future. So remember I talked about the long-term vision, get big on DVD, launch streaming, go international, go original content. There's a 5th chapter that Netflix is beginning to experiment with today. And think about it, this is going to be important maybe 5 or 10 years from now. But these are the long-term experiments. So the thing that I'm really intrigued by is the potential for interactive stories. So you might have seen Bandersnatch from Black Mirror, or you might have seen the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. So these are the experiments in interactive storytelling. And I'm guessing in the next 5 to 10 years, there's real potential to delight in these hard to copy margin enhancing ways. So that's the kind of stuff that I think about in the long term. And it's going to be cool. I mean, they're not competing with Disney. They're competing for screen time, right? So are you going to use Instagram? Are you going to watch a movie on Netflix? Or are you going to be using Fortnite, right? That's really the way you can think about the competition, if you will, for Netflix. So I just think interactive storytelling is a really interesting bet on the future.
Yeah,
it's a great question. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, by the way, what did you think of what they call it, Quibi or
Quibi?
Quibi,
the Quibi launch was kind of wild. So from an entrepreneur startup perspective, you like to launch early and quickly and iterate like crazy. But Quibi ended up getting like $1 billion investment. So they kind of tried to do a big bang launch. It's all short form. It was all mobile only. And unfortunately, they launched into COVID, where for the first time, people were spending much more time on their laptop and computer and large screens and much less time on their mobile device. So that was really bad. Since then, they've had to, redo their plans to get to the bigger screen. So it was really hard. In perfect hindsight, I've actually seen this mistake before when you get $1 billion to launch a startup. I just wish that they had started and iterated really quickly when the stakes were low. So it's just been hard. It's been hard for them.
Cool. We got some great questions here rolling into Slido here.
Great.
We have, what was the most difficult decision you ever made?
My decisions are always personal. Should I get married or not? Should I, leave Netflix for my next startup? Should I leave Chegg to do what I do today? And then, by the way, I've screwed up. Like, I've taken on lots of risk. I've had 3 failed startups that I was part of. My wife has created a rule. She says, "Hey, Gib, you just have to say the answer when you wake up on Monday morning." She won't let me. She says, "Your decisions never get better with time, Gib," because she notices I have a tendency to procrastinate on these personal decisions. That's been helpful. So I would just wake up and decide, okay, I'm going to Netflix, or okay, I'm going to Chegg, or okay, I'm gonna do teaching and talks and workshops all over the world, and just not look back, because all of those decisions have been great. And then my failures, Epoch, Innovation, Creative Wonders, you forget them quickly. So it's all good.
Totally. Yeah. So you talked about another question we got here. You talked about the UK launched, which you postponed here. But what's your best tip when you want to go global with your product?
I don't have a ton of experience in this area, because I had moved on to Chegg by 2010, and the global expansion's been largely after that at Netflix. So I'm not the most qualified. In my limited experience, so our initial theory at Netflix was that we would do everything that we did from Los Gatos, California, and we wouldn't have employees around the world. We tried to keep it simple. Turns out there's some tax benefits there as well. And Netflix struggled with that theory. So I guess that the tip is recognize that people all over the world are not the same. And so be aware of that and spend the time and effort to get to know the people in the different countries. Netflix really struggled. They use a essentially credit card system in South America, and totally struggled because of that. It took them a year or two to get over that mistake. The launch in Canada was messy and dirty. I'm sure you've seen the noise in different countries as well. Anyways, so it's just hard. But don't fall into the trap of thinking that everybody around the world is exactly the same, because there's different issues from country to country.
Yeah, as a tip to our listeners, I think Reed Hastings has a new book out of the Netflix culture. I think it's called No Roots, and he talks a lot about different cultures across the globe and how hard it was to scale Netflix with. Yeah, he gives example from the American culture versus the Japanese culture when working together. So if you're interested in learning more, I think you should pick up his book. I haven't read it all yet, but it seems super, super interesting.
Yeah, and I have a culture talk on my baby website that's worth watching. So I talk about product strategy, culture. I call it career hacking is the third thing.
Great.
And then consumer science. But yeah, Reed's book is great. And then Mark Randolph, the other co-founder, wrote another book called This Will Never Work. Every idea he shared with his wife, she said, "That'll never work." And of course, one of them was Netflix, so it worked.
Yeah. And I remember it will never work. I can't remember who said it, but there was some kind of a movie executive or something that said if we're gonna be overrun by Netflix, it was gonna be like the Albanian army would invade the US or something. I can't remember who said it, but it was. That was
I
a
think it was
good
the
quote.
head of NBC or something. He now maintains that he didn't say it, but Reed was always finding ways to motivate folks.
That's it.
One quarter, he gave us all harpoons because of Blockbuster. We were going to harpoon the whale. You know, at the time, Blockbuster was substantially bigger than us.
That's good.
So he's always looking for drama to get folks motivated. It's fun.
Okay. Yeah. So you mentioned the career hacking here. We have another question. How do you decide when it's the right time to make a company transition?
Yeah, so for me, I have a lot of data and history. You know, I tend to do everything for about 3 to 5 years. And the pattern to my career is I look for startups with a proof of concept that are ready to scale, and then I help them to scale. And that's what I love to do. So at Netflix, and Netflix culturally, it was sort of going from a professional team to a dream team. You know, at some point, you know, when the company's got 2,000 or 3,000 employees, it's too much for me, and I'm not the right person for the job. So I was an English major. You know, I just happened to understand statistics well enough. But when Netflix went from a professional team to the dream team, you know, it was obvious to me and to others that they needed somebody in my role that had like a master's in statistics, for instance. And at the same time, I just love looking for startups with a proof of concept that are ready to scale and scaling them. So my next startup is Chegg, the textbook rental and homework help company, and was able to scale them as well. So helped take them public in 2014. And because of COVID, they went from a $5 billion valuation to a $10 billion investment valuation because, you know, because folks are learning online. So that's called good luck. Anyways, just be aware of what you love to do and chase it. You know, the challenge is that takes 30 years to figure out. So I know it well because I've been doing it for 30 years. But my essay is called Hacking Your Career. It's on Medium. It basically says that we are product leaders in our careers. We should be taking a hypothesis-driven approach too. And we should be testing those ideas. And we should have results and feedback systems. I call that a personal board of directors. But the essay, it's very personal. And the net promoter score for that is like 84, which is freaky. So it resonates with lots of people. I'm at a place in my life where I don't have to worry about me. I'm just trying to be helpful as much as I can to product leaders all over the world, which is great fun.
Cool. So we have 2 questions left here.
Yeah.
If you want Gib to help you send more questions on Slido or in YouTube. Rashid is asking, where do you stand on the question of services being responsible for managing their customers' addiction to the platform? There's a new documentary being released on Netflix of kind of like the social media
the social dilemma. Yeah. I mean, I'll try to frame a Netflix response, but you know, this is personal. So Netflix is enabling storytellers all over the world to tell their stories, and stories are incredibly impactful, and they help people to learn and grow, etc. I mean, I love that they put the social dilemma on their platform. So that's how Netflix thinks about things. The other thing about the culture, it's all about freedom and responsibility. So the company, you know, we like, for instance, all the parents wanted parent controls, and we sort of knew that the kids were smarter than the parents, right? That any password system we put in place, the kids would hack, which they do. So Netflix just embraces, from a cultural point of view, the idea of freedom and responsibility, which is people have to make their own decisions about this. Having said that, you know, about half of my career personally has been engaged in teaching and learning. So I purposely went to an educational technology company in Chegg next because I was trying to do better and more for the world. So you know, people, like, companies can decide what they want to do, and then people can decide what they want to do. So I'm glad that Netflix has gotten big and has a great platform for storytelling. And then I'm also glad that I could go off and make the world better by helping students to save $1 billion renting textbooks instead of buying them. So both you know, you got to decide what to do.
It's great. Okay, last question here from Martin T. From the south of Stockholm. He asks or says, super inspiring talk. Thank you for sharing! Exclamation point. Do you have any favorite product discovery frameworks or playbooks?
Well, I actually haven't focused on discovery per se. It's been on my mind. You know, that's how do you figure out how to build the right product to essentially get product market fit. That's the way I think about discovery, and I've done it a lot. You know, let's see. So probably short answer, no. I haven't gone to that yet. I've done a talk and an article I call Customer Obsession. It's really about, my definition of customer obsession is, you know, your job is to delight customers in these hard to copy, margin enhancing ways, but put the customer at the center of everything you do. But the cool thing is, you know, Netflix has got A/B test systems, 195 million members. That's pretty cool. But there's 4 sources of data. One is the qualitative focus group and usability. Second is surveys, ask people what they think. The third is the existing data, like what percentage of our customers are watching at least 40 hours a month kind of deal. And then the big dog is A/B testing. But I spent a lot of time with different product people, helping them explore all 4 of those sources of data to figure out the right thing to build. And I call that consumer science. But ask the same question in 2 years, and maybe I'll either have found those favorite frameworks or I'll develop on my own. But I don't have one now.
Okay.
But it's really cool. And read the Customer Obsession article. All these things are free. I'm only referring them because I've written them to be helpful, and because the NPS is high, so that means they have been helpful. That's why I do it.
So much great stuff out there. So the last question, I promise. We got one last one here. A political question. Let's end on that. It's from Bertrand from Hamburg in Germany. He asks, do you think that given the content and subscriber count, Netflix has a possible impact on the upcoming US election?
I doubt it. You know, the reason is most people, when they're watching Netflix, they're just trying to relax, right? It's really not about engaging people to do certain things. I mean, a big surprise to me was how important, I don't know if you noticed, but one of the big original content deals that Netflix first did was with Adam Sandler. You know, 5 films for a lot of money, and people like, well, you know, his stuff isn't that good. Well, Adam Sandler specializes in leave your brains at the door comedy, right? And so I don't think that Netflix is the right platform to really engage or to change people's behavior. It's a great platform for learning and exploring and discovering, for being entertained and for relaxing, you know, hence, you know, Netflix and chill, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think Netflix has to worry too much. And frankly, they've done some great stuff, like in the face of Black Lives Matter and racial injustice issues. They curated like 50 amazing movies. I get a kick out of the fact that they launched The Social Dilemma on their platform. Like, this is all to educate and inspire folks, but probably not going to be used to harm. I mean, there's another interesting one. Remember in Saudi Arabia, Netflix had to take down the comedian Hassan Minhaj. He did Patriot Act. So Netflix did take it down in Saudi Arabia, and then they put it up for free for the world on YouTube. So that was their response, which I thought was pretty cool. Yeah. All right, Eric, thanks a ton. Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Seema. It's been great fun to spend the evening with you. And someday I'll see you guys in person. I look forward to that.
For sure. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Gibson. Thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.